Okay, so we've made it through the first week, and we had a few glitches. I think that the issue of the answer key is now resolved. You'll always be able to see the last attempt. I just moments ago I got another email asking me if it would be possible to see get an answer key for all of the attempts. So I've asked the tech people if that's possible. So I'll let you know on the discussion board whether or not you'll be able to, after Sunday, after the exam is closed, whether you'll be able to see your answers for all of the attempts. Um, I had planned this morning to present a video covering all of the covering the questions that were missed during the exam, the ones that were frequently missed, the ones you had problems with. But unfortunately, the spreadsheet that tells me which were the most missed questions hasn't been put together yet, or is in the process of being put together. So I'm going to have to wait for that until a few hours until I get that. So, but I promise to have that video up today. If you notice, you're only going to be dealing with one chapter this week, but I have to say it is the longest chapter in the book, and it is a very difficult chapter. But it is one of the most important in the sense that you'll get a good idea of how economists organize their thinking about the process of economic growth. I do want to say that I probably would have a different sort of emphasis than your text has in terms of emphasizing that after you go through this process, you develop the model, you work through the results, you come up with the conclusion after you test the model that capital accumulation, while one aspect of the process of long-term economic growth, is not the most important aspect or the most important contributor to economic growth. I myself think that that's not necessarily a bad thing. You have a model, at least the model allows you uh, to design an empirical test that allows you to determine how important uh, the, uh, the factor that it focuses on is. And in the case of the solo model, even if we do come out that capital accumulation is not the driver of economic growth, that's still an important bit of knowledge, because to put this in context, if you look back at history, most economists felt, and I think they still to a certain degree feel, that capital accumulation is a very important element of how to achieve a high level of development. Think back at the period when the United States, Canada, Argentina were growing rapidly, the mid to late 1800s, and a primary contributor to that growth process was the huge volumes of capital that were flowing from Western Europe, the United Kingdom in particular, to these areas of what were called recent settlement. The capital was help fuel the development of infrastructure, canals, waterways, railroads. Um, then later on, we have the example of the Soviet Union. Um, During the Stalinist era in the 30s, the Soviet Union embarked on a period of industrialization, and they did it through the collectivization of agriculture, and basically through raising the savings rate, but in a forced way, in a brutally forced way. And so, for most economists, the Soviet experience had a great influence on their thinking, in the sense that this was one of the paths towards development. And then historically, the last element that at least seemed to buttress the case for um, capital accumulation was the Marshall Plan. If you recall, the Marshall Plan was implemented after World War II because the Allies, the United States in particular, wanted uh, wanted to promote the rapid recovery of Western Europe so as to avoid sort of the conditions that led to the rise of Nazi Germany. If you recall, Nazi Germany went into a recession, depression right after World War One, due in part because it was struggling to rebuild its economy after World War One. The Marshall Plan provided for financial capital that led to a transfer of physical capital to Western Europe, and is some people, at least at the time, felt that, wow, this is a classic example of capital accumulation. You have this massive transfer of capital into Western Europe, and within a period of 5 to 6 years, Western Europe, at least production levels, are back to where they were right before the war started. So, uh, you know, at least historically, we felt capital accumulation was important, but we hadn't actually had a framework such as the solo model that showed us how to go about the process of testing that hypothesis. And that, I think, is one of the major contributors of the solo model, the ability to empirically sort out what were the contributions to growth using the growth accounting equation. Well, hopefully this week will go much more smoothly in terms of the technical aspects of the course. And remember, if you have questions, please, regarding the concepts or the material that we're covering, I'm always here, and I'm always happy to comment on them and to help you as you're studying and working through the chapter, as you're working with the material. So good luck this week, and I'm always online if you have anything that you need to discuss.